Hello and welcome to what is the grand finale of Reading Pride's Digital Together, where this year we've had to find alternative and creative ways of celebrating diversity here in the Thames Valley. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jamie Wake. The drag queen has been Leather Queen, and tonight I'll be guiding you through Reading Pride's past, present and future. And guess what? We're doing this live, so anything could possibly go wrong. And as you know, in live television, it usually does. I'm going to be joined tonight by some very special guests. And together, we're going to be looking back over the last 15 years of Reading Pride. But, we also have to look at the future as well. As a panel discussion, we have a number of set questions already, but we really want to hear from you this evening as well. We want to hear your questions. So all you have to do is put them in the comments and in the chat and start them with the letter Q, and we will make sure our panelists this evening can answer as many of them as we can. I can see some of you already placing comments in the screen. Mark saying hello to Charlene, hello to Mark and to Charlene. Brendan is saying hello to Russell, and Charlie Scott is saying good evening as well. So thank you for everyone that is joining so far. Tonight we're going to be going live on YouTube. We're going to be going live on Twitch, Twitter, Periscope, and we'll also be going on the Reading Pride and Club F.O.D's Facebook pages. So we're going multi-streaming. I believe that is the posh word that we use. So please, everyone that's watching, remember to try and share the stream for us as well, and that will be great. So without further ado, let's meet the people who are going to be on the panel this evening. And I had to press magic buttons all by myself. Here they are. Fingers crossed. It's slower than anticipated on the computer system this evening. Technology is working wonders. We'll try pressing that button again. There we go. We've got you. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
It was just Lorna there shouting out. I don't know about you, but I'm looking at this. It looks a bit like the Brady Bunch. So you can all decide which characters you're going to be. So let's meet you all individually and find out a little bit more about you. Leslie, I'm going to start with you because let's face it, all of this came about because of your passion right at the beginning. So let's bring you up on the screen. There we go. Hello, Leslie. Now you were the chair, weren't you, right at the beginning? Yeah. When you were the chair and when you had the idea for Reading Pride, how did all that come about?
Well, I suppose you've got to really go back to Manchester, February 1988, when we were marching to stop the clause, the Section 28. And then, of course, it became law in April. And then it was a full 12 years or something that before Labour wanted to repeal Section 28. And at that time, there was a lot of controversy, people writing letters in the papers, and there was 39 church leaders based in Reading, and they signed a letter against the repeal of Section 28, and it was on the front page of the Reading Chronicle. That stirred a lot of people up, and the letters page was, at the time, Reading Chronicle was like a broadsheet, and there was, 2 pages of letters to and for the repeal, and against, rather. And I organised a question time type debate at the place where I worked. And I invited some of the church leaders that signed that letter. And I invited Angela Mason, who was director of Stonewall at the time, Penny, who was chair of the LGBT helpline at the time. And we organised this event. It was so well attended. It exceeded my expectations. The room we had was already a big room, and it was packed, and there was standing room only. And at the end, it was very civilised. People respected people's opinions. But at the end, one of the church leaders that signed the letter stood up and said, "After what I've heard tonight, I'm going to remove my name from that letter. And I thought, well, if he's brave enough to stand up in front of all his peers and this crowd of people, I bet there's a load of them thinking that as well. And I thought, what we need, we've got to break down these stereotypes that some people have about gay people. And so then I decided, that was in 2000, and then my next sort of mission was to bring Reading Pride to Reading, and that's how it started, basically.
Now, obviously, you were the chair, Leslie, weren't you, right back at in 2003, and obviously the first Pride in 2004. I'm guessing that must come with some challenges. What sort of challenge did you have to face while you were doing that?
I suppose people, money. um, there was again still reluctance from the church to accept us, and funding was a massive thing. We needed to raise a lot of money, and of course we weren't going to be charging people to get in, because I was adamant that I wanted it to be a free event, and I wanted it to be an inclusive event. I wanted families to come and have picnics and enjoy it. I wanted everybody to have a good time. But I don't think I'm a natural chair. I admit that now. I lead by example, and I think that's a good way to lead. But it was a challenge.
And you're the reason why Pride's still free. That ethos has continued all the way 15 years later. There's not many prides that can say that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm absolutely over the moon with that. The legacy is fantastic. The team that came together then, I mean, it wouldn't have happened really, because I was at the end of my tether, to be honest, when you lot joined the Pride team, and you had the energy that was really lacking in me by then, because it was over 2 years of trying to get people interested and trying to get questionnaires done and funding, and there was a little bit of complacency, and then we finally got this one team, and of course you, Selwyn and Laurence, were very good at marketing and getting yourselves out there.
I think we were probably all much younger back then, or drunker. I'll let you choose which one to go for. So, Leslie, what have you been doing since the busy days of Pride? Because I know what you're like. You're probably just as busy now.
Yeah, well, I'm retired. I retired in 2016, I was 17, and I took voluntary redundancy. And I did have a social media job for a little while, but I decided, I need to stop working, basically. But since I've been doing photography, and I've just been doing some digital paintings, and I've had an exhibition on Reading Fringe, and I've just actually illustrated a gorgeous little children's storybook about the gas tower, which is a bit of a passion of mine at the moment. So yeah, I'm fighting for the gas tower. It's an odd thing, But yeah, being a lot more creative. Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. Sorry, Leslie. Let me try and bring you back up. There we go. So what did you say just then? Sorry, that's me being clumsy on the buttons.
All right. Okay. All of it. Okay. So now I've retired. I took voluntary redundancy, and then I had a social media job for a little while, but I decided I needed some time off. I went to Shetland, and I don't know if you've ever been to Shetland. It's absolutely gorgeous, and you can't help but fall in love with the peace of the place. And that made me think, I don't want to work anymore. And I was of the age, really. I'd worked since I was 15. And since then I've become more creative. I've do photography. I've had an exhibition on Reading Fringe Festival. I've I've been doing digital paintings, and I've just did the illustrations for the most gorgeous little storybook, children's book, which is based in Newtown in Reading about the gas tower. And the gas tower is a bit of a love of mine. I know it's an odd thing to be in love with, but I am.
I did try to
We've got
get a copy of the
horrible
book,
flats.
Leslie. Do you know they do on
Yeah.
TV? They have the book to plug, but I couldn't get it in time. So, but we'll
Oh,
make sure we put a post up so people can
oh,
find the
brilliant.
book and do that. But thank you for introducing yourself, Leslie. Now let's move on to another one of the founders of Reading Pride. And I do apologise if I do get clumsy with the buttons, everyone at home. I had a mince pie before I started. I probably should have washed my hands a bit more than I did. Hello, Laurence. Obviously, I do
Hello.
know you. Known you for a long time. And so I usually know your background, mainly because I'm usually the butt of the jokes in many of your stories. But how did you get involved in Reading Pride?
Well, actually, just before we start, there's a comment that's come through which I would like to echo personally myself, and it's to Leslie, and it's from Michael Love, and he says, "Ever so grateful for your work." And we had a little conversation beforehand. I didn't know how much work had gone into Reading Pride before we got involved, and it was one of the main things that sort of was so inspiring. And as Leslie mentioned, we were loving the fact going around to the various bars. We used to sit in internet chat rooms, me and Jamie, and sort of like just chatting away, and then say, "Oh, have you heard Reading's having a Pride?" And then Jamie would respond back with, "Really? When's that? Oh, didn't you know?" We were doing this in chat rooms for ages, and it was just so much fun going around, meeting people, chatting to them, and telling them about what was going to happen and why we wanted Pride in Reading. So what was your question, Jamie? I've completely forgotten.
You've had the rosé beforehand, haven't you?
I had the alcohol-free one.
Yeah. How did you get involved in Reading Pride? I noticed people are asking questions already in the chat room, so thank you for that. I'm asking Sophie, who's watching a minute behind when we do this, if you could just copy and paste that into a WhatsApp message for me. All ModCons here in Whitley. There we go. So, Laurence, how did you get involved in Reading Pride?
Well, initially it was Jamie, it was you. You contacted me at work on a Monday, I think it was, or was it Tuesday? It was the beginning of the week. And it came back to sort of, you'd just moved to Reading, I think just before Christmas time, and we were at a Christmas or a New Year's party. And someone asked you a question about what you're looking forward to in Reading over the next new year. And you made up some story. And then at the end you said, "I'm looking forward to go to Reading Pride," and we all just fell about laughing. Reading will never have a Pride. Oh, that's silly, la la la. A couple of days later, you rang me up and said, "You know, we laughed about the Reading Pride." I went, "Yeah." He said, "There is going to be one, and it's planned, and there's a meeting tonight. Do you want to come along to it?" I went, "Absolutely, absolutely, yeah." And that was the first time we went to the meeting, and that's where we met some of the other people, like Lorna. I think that was your very first meeting. Lorna later on, and we just went from there. And we just thought, right, we had a date. There was a date planned, September the 4th, and we thought, let's go for it.
Now, Laurence, I obviously know with my personal life why Selwyn used to wear a pink cowboy hat. I think it's fair to say that you like hats as well. Is there a story behind why any photo at Reading Pride you're always wearing a yellow, I'm not sure if it's a Lego builder's hat or it's just a builder's hat?
Well, the one thing is, you may have noticed I'm ginger and do get slightly burnt almost in daylight. So that's why I'm glad we've all gone to LED lights now, so I don't have to burn indoors. But one thing of being outdoors all the time, I need to keep the sun off me. And I think the very first year I had some sort of party hat from a party shop of an Australian with the corks and whatever. That would keep the sun off me. I think by the second year of doing Reading Pride, I was then working as the operations manager, which did mean a lot of standing around on site, moving the car around site in the sun. And the one thing that you guys maybe who've not been to or built Pride is there's fencing all around, and that's heavy stuff, and you need to have spanners and hammers with you. So I ended up getting a tool belt, and quite often you had to lift the fence, and it was hitting me in the head. So I had a safety hat, which I had from work. So I started wearing that basically, and then the image appeared, the high vis jacket and the rest of it. And also, the one thing about it was, on that second year of Pride, is your first year you're constantly being told, where are you, Laurence? Where are you? Having that hat on, anyone could see me anywhere on the field and knew exactly where I was. So there was a practicality bit to it as well, but it also works very well for Pride marches and stuff like that as well. So it's become a bit of my clothes of choice.
No wonder we all had to keep going out as a village people every time we went anywhere. But saved money at Fun and Frolics. Obviously, other fancy dress shops are available. Thank you for that, Laurence. I'm going to move over to another founder of Reading Pride now. Lorna, where are you? I pressed the button. Oh, there you are. I will lick my fingers to get the mince pies off. How are you, my darling?
I'm good, thank you.
We've seen each other every day this week, more than we've seen each other in the last year.
What is going on?
Sorry, darling?
It's all right, carry on.
You know I'm deaf. I'll make up what I think you say. Obviously, you're one of the Pride founders as well, and you were the chair of Reading Pride from 2005 through to 2011. What other roles did you do in your time at Reading Pride?
So when I joined, and as Laurence said, when Laurence and you and Selwyn joined, that was my first day too. And so we all met at the same time. And I basically wanted to get involved. They advertised that they wanted someone to look after the website. So I thought, well, I need to hone up on my skills on creating websites. And that's why I joined and started doing the website. I got the basics done for you. I'm not the best, but I got the basics done.
I found one of your old logos today, and I was looking for photographs, actually.
Oh, no. Some of them are really awful.
I wouldn't embarrass you like that. Or would I? There we go. No, but Lorna, obviously, your chairship, I don't know if that's the correct word, ended in 2011. What have you been doing since then?
Well, I found that I had to leave Reading Pride at 2011 because I wanted to set up Support You. And I think that 6 months changeover time was the hardest time of my life, because trying to do both, wind up Reading Pride for myself and then go on to Support You. And of course, I've been doing that ever since, which come next year will be our 10th anniversary. Oh my God, I can't believe where the time's gone.
10 years. You know, as you say that, you're just making the rest of us feel old.
Yeah.
Which...
Well, I was looking a minute ago and going, how come Laurence has not got any grey hair?
Just for men.
No, because of ginger.
Yeah. His hair is strawberry blonde, so just for, I don't know, Satsumas, who knows. Thank you for that, Lorna. Obviously, be back to you shortly with questions with everyone else. And now I'm going to give you another treat, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce you to someone you probably know already. I was waiting for it to pop up on the screen, and that's Paul Britt. Paul's the current trustee of... Well, you're the chair of the trustees, Paul, if I get this right, and acting chair at the moment. How did you get involved in Reading Pride?
I was trying to recount. I think I got involved in about 2009, and it was just a call. I think it was from a post on social media, and it ended up meeting in Winford, and I think that's where I met Lorna. And they said, "Look, we need trustees. Do you want to join?" And so, yeah, got involved. That was pretty much all there was to it. It seems a very long time ago. I sort of feel quite old thinking about it now. But...
That is quite a long time. And you're still there, which is a good sign, to be fair, Paul, and very much needed. But you've actually been doing a lot LGBT rights campaigning. I believe when I looked at your bio, Ella, you've been doing that for 25 years. So what changes have been momentous for you in that time? What changes can you tell us all about that are important to you?
Well, I mean, yeah. So back in sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, I was involved in a youth group. So not only was I a user, if you like, I was also, can you believe it, the treasurer of that group as well. It was for Richmond in southwest London. And so one of the big things that I remember campaigning for back then, which Leslie mentioned earlier, was the repeal of Section 28. And also the equalisation for the consent which had been lowered to 18 in sort of the late 90s, but we wanted it to be 16 for the same as straight couples as well. So I think those were things that I kind of remember. But I know that once Labour sort of came into power from sort of like 1997, there was a whole raft of changes that sort of came through, you know, from the Adoption Act right the way through to I mean, the Gender Recognition Act's obviously a bit long in the tooth, but at the time that was considered quite groundbreaking. We also had the civil partnership that came in. I think that was 2004. So it sort of started off at sort of the beginning of the 2000s, and then by the time we sort of got to sort of 2013, we sort of had marriage equality, and you know, so there's been a lot of changes over that time, which has been really good. And we just hope that we can keep those changes going, really.
So you've seen a lot, you've been involved a lot, and I think I speak for everyone, Paul, that we're so glad you're still involved with Reading Pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you'll hear me chime a lot throughout the broadcast this evening, and I just want to make sure people know that I do have a connection with Reading Pride, like others here this evening. I was one of the founders, along with my late husband, Selwyn Jones, who many of you know, and I'm sure is continuing to keep a watchful eye on proceedings. But if there is you, Sal, taking charge of the computer buttons and not the mince pie, please stop it. I wasn't a chair, but I think I was often described as being as wooden as a table, especially after one of my shows. I've held numerous roles in Pride, press officer. I was sponsorship manager for a little while, and I think I was responsible for some of the key sponsorship in the beginning. And obviously, as you all know, when I haven't got a beard, I occasionally wear a dress, and hosted the main stage for the first 3 years of Supernova. Now I'm the CEO of Club F.O.D, which aims to prevent social isolation within the LGBT plus community, and which also organises Berkshire's only dedicated LGBT night at the Blagrave Arms. So now that you've met all of us, you've found out a little bit more, it's time for me to take the panel on a trip down memory lane. We do have some set questions already, but don't forget, we still want to hear questions from you. I know some are coming through, and Sophie, bless her, is sending them through. And what I'll do, every now and again, I will bring those questions to the panel as a group for everyone to answer. So I'm going to go to Leslie with the first question, making sure the mince pie's not knocking the button. It's my clumsiness. It's not a mince pie. I make excuses. Okay. Leslie,
I didn't think it was a mince pie.
You know, I'm not. I'm a pig. You don't know the snacks I've got hidden underneath here from one of my essential trips today. I'm going to ask you the first question. The same question we're going to ask all of the panellists. What was your experience of your first Reading Pride?
I think that day started at 7 o'clock in the morning for me. I was on the Kings Meadow, the site, and I remember going to the site, and 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was a low mist, and there was the sun was rising, and it was the most beautiful scene. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, you know, we've done it. We've brought Pride to Reading. And I just kept thinking, oh, this place is going to be buzzing with people, you know, and noise and music. And I just remember thinking how fantastic it was that we'd actually done it.
It was like one of those cup of soup feelings you get around your shoulders, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember standing on the stage looking at everyone. You know, which was a very privileged position during the day to look up from a distance, and then having a young child ask for my autograph, and I'm like, it's a bit odd. Doesn't happen now, but I might have to start doing play school and stuff for my shows. But it was an amazing feeling, wasn't it? To have people
throughout the day. Because there was a queue started, we opened at 8:12, and the queue had formed already, and people wearing hats. It was so colourful, and everybody was happy, and we were blessed with really great weather that day as well. And I just remember stopping every hour or so and just sort of looking and taking it in and thinking, oh God, we've done this. It's brilliant. You know, it was a fantastic feeling.
And I don't think that feeling ever goes away, which is brilliant. Laurence, I'm going to ask you the same question. What was your experience of the first Reading Pride?
I think it was hectic. I suppose it didn't kind of think or imagine how much work has got to get done and how many things have to be done at the same time. There's always something that you've missed and forgotten and needs to do, and there's always some sort of, not drama, but something that needs to be done that's been forgotten when it's behind the stage and stuff like that. And I think I had a bit of a revelation moment sort of halfway through the day, running around everywhere. That was the other thing I realised. There's a lot of walking to be done across that field. I just suddenly stopped and looked around, and like Leslie said, just seeing all these people enjoying themselves, and I was like, wow, we've actually made this happen. And then I thought, right, I've got to go off and do something else. It was just a split second, but it was almost like, wow, this is so great. We really needed to have this. And there was lots of things going on politically that just really made it the right time for Reading Pride to happen. And it's kind of maintained that great community feel. It's got bigger, it's got better, and it hasn't got over commercialized that some of the other prides have. And that I always do remember that first day, all those big tents, all those people around. It was just fantastic.
Thank you, Laurence. Lots of memories there. And to answer Jan's question just posted, it started in 2004. It saves me having to get a text from Sophie to do that. Now, Lorna, Miss Pride,
Yes.
what was your first experience of that first Reading Pride on September the 3rd, 2004? Still remember the date in my head.
I've weirdly, because I hadn't been out for very long, I had to. I didn't know what to expect because I've never been to one before. Here and I was helping set one up, and my day was spent actually in the caravan printing all the notices that we didn't know we wanted until it was on the day. So I took. Do you remember? I took my laptop and I took my printer, and I just sat in there and just kept printing stuff out all day, making sure everybody had what they needed, and then I'd get out and do what else, like bucket shaking stuff. So that was my experience of Reading Pride, really, and pretty much for the next 9 years.
That printer's seen some action, hasn't it, in the caravan. Thank you, Lorna. I apologise for the people at home that just heard maybe an obscene word come from my doorbell. I have a Hermes courier downstairs at the door, which I'm going to get someone on the screen so I can answer the door in a second. Now, Paul, I'm going to ask you the same question. What was your experience of the first Reading Pride that you attended?
The first Reading Pride I attended, I was not actually involved with Reading Pride, and I think I attended it in 2004. Although, as I'm getting on a bit, my memory is not as good, so it may not have been 2004. But I remember it being very large. I mean, you have to remember my experiences of Pride had only really been with London, and so I'd never really considered that Reading might actually have its own event. So I remember turning up and being sort of quite surprised at how large it was. You know, they'd taken up the whole of King's Meadow at that time. Am I still... Sorry, there was a clicking. Have you lost audio?
Again, you still hear us, Paul?
Yes, I can. Sorry,
Yeah.
I apologise for that. So it was very much. I think the fact that it was free was something that was good, because I think at the time there was sort of a trend, if you like, to start sort of charging people. So I remember in London, you always had to spend, I think it was about £15 to get into Finsbury Park and that type of thing. So to be able to turn up a free event was really nice. So that was kind of my sort of first memory.
The free event is something I think sticks in everyone's head for Reading Pride. I'm so glad that hasn't changed since the beginning, as I was saying to Leslie. Because if you go to other prides, and I'm not being critical of other prides, our job really is to educate and eliminate discrimination. And if you're a family of four going to learn, £100 in tickets is an expensive lesson, isn't it, really? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I think people have to understand the economy, though, because keeping it free means that there are certain trade-offs. You know, you have to. People say, "Oh, it's too commercial," and there's always that. Oh, well, you can't involve all these people. But I think we're doing quite well in keeping the sponsorship and the community feel, while still putting on a good quality event and trying to balance all that. I still think we do that pretty well at the moment. So I'm not seeing any changes for the future, at least with regards to charging. So as long as we keep this model sustainable, I think it will remain free until it's viable to keep it free.
No, I appreciate your comments. I'm just going to bring the group back in because we do have a number of questions coming through. And rather than doing it as an individual, I did try to get rid of the Hermes driver, my route driver, but I don't think you heard me. Here we go. This is a question, and I'm throwing this out to all of you, from Jake Hambleton. Hello, Jake. Nice to meet you. He asked, we're setting up Newbury's Pride. First one next year, touchwood, COVID allowing. How did you first get local religious leaders, so local churches, etc., involved at the start, or has it something that has gradually grown over the years? Are there any learnings from yourself or challenges within this area? Anyone can.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I think there was a bit of hostility on that first one. I think we were threatened, weren't we, with a protest or something for the first one, and I had to do a piece to camera live because the news was there for the opening, and I said, I've been blessed with great weather, and I thought, keep that in, please keep that in. But yeah, I mean, those church leaders, going back to that first meeting, the church leaders that signed that letter against the repeal of Section 28, it's about awareness, isn't it? And we got some of those church leaders on board. I mean, I'm not sure what's happened since that first Pride. You others will be able to fill me in on that, but yeah, I just remember the threat of a possible protest. I thought, oh God, we don't need that. And it didn't
because we had a similar thing, Jamie, as well. We went to BBC Radio Berkshire. We suddenly had the great idea that the night before we should go out and have a pizza and a few beers because we'd worked a lot, and then suddenly realised that we had to be. Just one pizza. We then realised we had to be at BBC Berkshire for something like 5:36 in the morning to do a recording, which was going to be played out throughout the day, and still get down to site at 7 o'clock. And we managed to get that little dig in as well. We had been told by someone who was involved with the police, who was helping Reading Pride, so it wasn't a police matter, it was just a police officer, and he had gone to another group, and apparently it was a Christian women's group, I think it was, who apparently were praying for rain. So we deliberately mentioned it in the news so that it would go out, and we said, well, look at the lovely weather we've got. And I remember I mentioning something about people who say things like this should read their Bible or religious text a little bit more instead of sending out hate to people. And I think, don't know if it started it, but I think about 2-3 years later, we suddenly got a marketing request for a religious group. Wasn't sort of Catholic, Protestant or whatever. And that's when we started thinking, ooh, is this going to be a problem? We started checking out their webpage and found that they were an inclusive group. So we started to, at that point, they came along. And I think next year we started getting sort of religious groups or spiritualist groups and stuff like that starting to get involved. So it was a very slow change, to answer your question there. I think now we've got various other groups involved, and I think it was a very slow uphill battle, but it's there.
Now,
I mean,
Paul,
if I can add to this, if I can add to this, coming up to the fact that more and more religious organisations have now realised where they've been going wrong, and we're seeing a lot more. In fact, Reading Minster have now got behind it and and started using Open Table, which is an LGBT service that they're going to do on a regular basis. That's how far we've come from when we started at Reading Pride all those years ago. What a big difference.
It's actually what I was going to mention there, Lorna, to Paul about Reading Minster. How did that become part of the Reading Pride calendar?
Well, that was really, because one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring was a Pride Week, which I think we've kind of started to establish that, because we'd always said for many years we want it to be a week of events, not just the event itself, because different people want different things, and so one of the trustees who has strong links with the church said, "Well, let me speak to them, and I'll, we'll see what we can do." And I said, "Please do." So she went off and spoke to them and said, "Yes, they would like to do. I think it's called a Eucharist." And I said, "That's great." So I think, and certainly on the Christian side, I think that's good. We certainly have more with the other religions. I would certainly like for them to get involved as well. But I think we're certainly moving in the right direction in there. And I think a lot has changed since over the last 2 decades, I think, with regards to religion and the LGBT community. And I think that's something that we should keep pushing for as well going forward.
I think it's certainly about hearts and minds, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've answered Jake's question, though. Have we? Do I need to? Can just remind me what the question? I think the question was how. I'll try and answer the question from what I remember, and I would advise engagement. Speak to your and get them involved. You don't sit there and wait for them to come to you. You can go to them as well. It's a two-way street. Go and speak to them. Ask if they would like to be involved or would like to do something. And I think that's the best thing. And if you don't know where to search, Google is your friend. Just you can find things in Google, try and find contacts, go and get them, and I'm sure you'll find some success there somewhere. So that would be probably my advice. Jake.
Thank you, Paul, because there was a second part to the question. I don't think we call that, so thank you for putting that across there. Before we go back to the plan questions, we had another question in from Ash Corcoran, and I apologise if I have pronounced your surname incorrectly. That's I'm not very good with language, apparently. First of all, he says, "Thank you for all doing this today. It's been very insightful." So his question is, looking to the future, where would you like to see Reading Pride go? For example, bigger festival, parade, further networking during the year before and after the main day, etc. I'll start with Paul on this one because you are Pride currently, and then we'll go back through the years to ask the question.
Where would I like to see Reading Pride go? I mean, I would like it to be successful, so I certainly want to make sure that it's sustainable. I think that's the key thing, and so whatever we do, I want to make sure that it's always there. I think it's important that we have this event in the calendar, and I think it's important for Reading. A bigger festival is always nice, but obviously that costs more money. That means more sponsorship. That means more donations. That means more work, a bigger team. So everything that you make bigger always has implications. I know I'm sounding a bit business-like here, but you kind of have to approach it a bit that way. It's about balancing things. Certainly the parade, that is something, we would really like to get vehicles involved in the parade in some way. But unfortunately, for many years, Reading's been very pedestrianised. And trying to get actual floats through Reading and trying to find a route. I mean, we have been looking at that, trying to see what our options are. And so I would say that in terms of the parade, I think that's something where you might see some growth over the next few years, provided that we can work out what our restrictions are and how we could make it work. And I certainly think I would like to see the festival maintain its size and to reach even broader parts of the community than perhaps what it's doing currently. So,
thank you, Paul. Lorna, I'm going to ask you the same question. Obviously, your perspective is going to be slightly different now because the rest of us aren't involved in Pride anymore. What would you like to see with Reading Pride?
It's a hard one because I agree. If you go to the next stage and become too big, I'd probably like to see more involvement from the high street, and think without them piggybacking, but actually get involved, because I recognise that they're going. They don't put any money in towards it, but. The worth mentioning is people like Ash, who's actually asked this question, are the people that are making it work from outside, who are doing different things. So, for instance, I don't know if you all know that this guy is the one that got us the rainbow crossing. So it's people like him who can do the extra things, and it's worth a shout out to him.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think it'd be more people getting involved and bringing more to it, and I want to see more culture from different areas of the community. So where we talked about religion, I'd like to see more, not just the religious side, but bringing in more from other cultures as well, and having a big party one day and have it more diverse than it's ever been before. That's a vision rather than what might happen.
Thank you, Lorna. And Laurence, the same question to you. What would you like to see with Reading Pride happen?
I think a lot of things that have already been said I would have agreed with. I think very much like the shops or the local businesses or parts of Reading get involved, like the restaurants. I remember going down to Brighton Pride one day and finding that there were restaurants that if they had a certain rainbow flag in it, they were basically giving some of their takings that day as donations, and it was also encouraging people to go to those particular restaurants. So, things like that where the shops and businesses can get involved. I know sort of in London Pride, we often see it that rainbows suddenly appear on all the shop fronts and stuff like that. And I agree with Lorna, you sometimes feel that they're tailoring on the back of it. But at the end of the day, it's still engagement. It's still a company putting a rainbow flag up. Yes, if they're a business, but let's face it, 20 years ago, there wouldn't be a rainbow flag. We wouldn't be involved. They're basically willing to support it by putting flags up and encouraging people to go in. So I think something like that. And just thinking, looking out the window at the darkness here, I think a winter pride. I'm just imagining Jamie possibly in a dress skating around somewhere. Just thinking, it's like just come to my mind. But on a serious note, it's always like Pride isn't for just one day. I've nicked your line on that one, Jamie, in case you use it later. But it'd be nice to have other events throughout the year. So, Leslie, you mentioned the Reading Fringe Festival and stuff like that. So a comedy night sort of thing, something else that's just different, but has the Reading Pride not logo but support, and they're supporting us as well. Whether the acts or the stage people or the artists or LGBT plus or whatever, it's doing some other things around the year. Paul, you mentioned, I know we've always brought it up in various meetings. Not everyone wants to go and sit in a park, watch an act or somebody. They want to listen to music. They may want to do crafts and arts. There's loads of things that could be done. Don't have to be done on that one day. They can be done through the rest of the year. And it really is encouraging people to approach Pride, but Pride also to approach them to say, let's get together. Let's do something different. There will be people interested in this. Poetry, book reading clubs. There's a lot of things that could be done. Social events throughout the year really is where I'm thinking. We can get people together and they can chat, talk and meet other people. Was that not the first reason, Lorna, you came to Pride? To meet people and start have friends because you'd just come out. So, I think that happens to everyone. It's not only just 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds coming out. There are people who are 30 years old. There are people who are 60 years old who are just coming out. Yeah. And obviously a 60-year-old he probably would like Kylie. But anyway, he may not like Kylie. He certainly won't like R&B music. So we need to have a social event or some sort of Pride event for the wide ranging of people that are in our diversity. That's been me, I think.
Thank you, Laurence. And Leslie, the same question, I guess, to you about. Forgot what the question was. How bad's that? What would you like to see?
Sorry, I went on a bit, didn't I?
Well, I think like what Paul said, it would be great for it to be self-sustainable. I think funding is always a issue, isn't it? And you always that sort of panic. We've got to get £2,000 by this date, and to pay for the fence. I remember that was in the first year, and I tell you what though, that on the first Pride, we did have a week of events. We had an opera, Patience and Sarah, based on that book that I love. We had that opera because South Street Arts Centre was very supportive. We had a comedy night. We had, gay comedians. I remember Zoe Lyons being on to read for me. We had a film. I think it was it was a positive response. The HIV charity put on this film. I remember the title, Little Bear, and I went to see it. So there was a week of events, either before or after, but I think that would be a great thing to have again, because like you say, not everybody wants to go to a festival. You know, some people might want to go to a comedy night though, and of course the Granby and the Winford were very supportive, and there was karaoke nights, and well, a lot of them were fundraising nights anyway, weren't they? We had to do them to get the money. But yeah, I think as long as it stays free, and yeah, that's really important, I think. Oh, hello.
I just tried to put a comment on from Mark, whose picture is so big. So comment, Mark. I'm going to take that off the broadcast. To be fair, Mark, so big. It's not a question as such. That would block out the sun. That question was so big, and I think it ends with saying it's not actually a question. So thank you, Mark, in your usual style to do that. He says, evening everyone, firstly my love to all of you. This year marks 20 years, on my share, since I first stepped onto the scene, but this was in Soho as a scared and naive 14-year-old on my own. I didn't experience a real connection with my community in Reading until Pride came along. Since then, I've worked extensively in the community and had the pleasure to get to call all of you friends. I was asked to be one of Pride's first ambassadors by the lovely Britt, that's you, Paul. And I've missed where I was, there's so many words, and was truly honoured to be presented with the Selwyn Jones Award last year by the committee. He says, I'm babbling on now. My point is that Pride created a family for me locally, and I'm sure many feel the same. Each year I'm overcome with emotion seeing how far the LGBTQ plus culture has come in the UK, and it makes me immensely proud to see our youth experience a completely different world to the one we all experienced prior to Pride. I don't really have a question as such, but more of a heartfelt desire to thank all of you so much. Thank you, Mark. It's a lovely comment to see there.
Thank you, Mark.
That is so heartwarming. I've got a tear in my eye, honestly.
It's nice to hear from the community, and I think my passion for that question that was asked, what do you see first? I'd like to see more strength of community. I'd like to see that family that we all talk about become even bigger. Let's face it, and I think Amy's posed a question already about dedicating a stage to our friends James, Joe and David, who sadly lost their lives at Fordbury this year.
Yes.
And that's shown, I certainly from my perspective, how big a community we are here in Reading. And if the chips are down, we come together and we face those challenges together. So with that said, I'm going to link that to the next question. We are going to be missing some of the questions that you were asked in your emails because of time restraints. But I think what was just mentioned there by Mark links in very well. So I'm going to come to you, Leslie, first of all. I'm going to see if I can get you back on that double screen. It happened rather quicker than I anticipated. Leslie, 2020 has been... What should we call this? I was going to say an endless horriblest, but that doesn't sound as right coming from my mouth as anybody else's.
A challenge.
A challenge to say. It's been a challenge. It's one where a sense of community has never been so important. How do you see Reading Pride and the wider Pride movement embrace and support our LGBTQ plus community to maintain that sense of community in the future?
Well, I think we're really lucky to live in Reading. Because Reading is so diverse and so ready to embrace all the different diversity that we have. I think the community is great, it's strong, it's big, it's supportive, and I think I've forgotten the question.
It was a long question, Leslie, wasn't it? So we know 2020 is a difficult year. What can the Reading Pride and the Pride movement do to embrace and support our community to maintain a sense of community?
I think just keep doing what's been happening, really. I mean, the Pride event is a positive thing. It breaks down stereotypes, and that was always my aim. I think it just needs that little bit more injection of finance, really, to be seen as the brilliant thing, the brilliant festival that it is. And Reading is known for festivals, and that's why at the very beginning I wanted it in September, so it would be in that timetable of festivals throughout the year, and it's become an institution, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah. I think it's certainly part of the calendar now in Reading, isn't it? Reading Pride,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all thanks to you, Leslie, and your tenacious, isn't it?
That's
And your
not.
hard work at the beginning. Laurence, I'm going to bring you into the conversation now with this final question we're going to be asking. You don't want me to repeat it, do you? Because it's a long question. I haven't had wine.
They go for it. Not yet.
So-
no. I'm just trying to really think where to expand it and how, what else could be done. I think the main thing is we unfortunately have had the community tested this year, and it was amazing to see the community come together. You kind of see the community, the best of the community, when we're celebrating, but also when we're in sorrow, and it was really heartfelt for me feeling that community come together. I don't actually live in Reading. Reading has been, I've adopted Reading, or Reading has adopted me. Everyone thinks I live in Reading because they see me there so often. And I think being outside Reading and not really being able to travel to Reading for some of the events that have happened was kind of not distressing, but the fact that through the communications like we're doing this, you can still feel part of it. You don't feel isolated. So thankfully the technology has helped us and brought the community together. And there are lots of other events that people are doing. The Reading Pride digital wear thing, I think, was a perfect thing to do. It is something to look forward, Reading Pride, that date, the end of the year, the festival. We were, or probably still are, the last outdoor Pride event. And it's quite a lot of people do come from Manchester and Birmingham and stuff like that. So I think, yes, what we're doing here, I think, is helping that and keeps the community together. And that's the most important thing we need to do.
Thank you for that, Laurence. And Lorna, I'm sure I don't need to repeat the question. I'm just waiting for you to pop on the screen. It's very, very slow because we're using technology, and the internet is very, very popular in the world right now because of the 2020 pandemic. Lorna, what could be done? What could be done for this sense of community that we want?
Well, I think we're heading in that direction anyway. What we've got to do is group ourselves better when it comes round, and support Reading Pride a bit more, maybe, because if it wasn't for you guys, F.O.D, and it wasn't for my umbrella and ourselves, and as we keep growing, the more of us there are doing what we're doing, the more diverse and more options people have. And we can start losing the 80s feel and start feeling like we're in 2020. But the point is I'm making is I think we're going in the right direction. We just have to make sure we stay connected as organisations, so that we can bring everything to the table for Reading Pride each year. And I hope that Reading Pride will consider that in going forward, because there's more and more of us popping up now. And there's more support out there for us.
Thank you for that, Lorna. And Paul,
right.
I'm just waiting for you to pop on the screen. The button's been pressed, so I'm waiting for you to arrive. There we go. Paul, same question to you.
Okay. I mean, I think we have to look at what Reading Pride has actually achieved. You know, we've got My Umbrella, which focuses on the T and the plus. I mean, that is something that is a resource for other prides, and so is very much for focusing on that part of the community. The community came together, obviously, with the horrible attack earlier in the year, and you know there was a lot of scrutiny with the national press in there. But we'd already had some experience of the press because the community came together when Chick-fil-A came to Reading, and everyone, and with their sort of funding of what they'd done, the community came together and said, no, we don't want them here. And so we actually got rid of, Chick-fil-A is the third largest, I think, fast food chain in America. And we told them, essentially, that we didn't want them here anymore. And I think that's the community coming together to say, this is what we don't want. So what I'm saying is, I think there is a community here. And I think sometimes we don't feel it, but when it's needed, it's there and it comes out of the woodwork. And I think it comes out in full force. and then you can feel it. And it's only in times of disaster when you feel it, and also on the day of the festival you tend to feel it as well. But I think it is there throughout the year as well, but you don't feel it as much. So.
Thank you, Paul, for that. And I think you're absolutely right that feeling of community is a physical feeling that we can all feel when things not just go wrong, but when things go right as well. And I'm sure, like many of you, I have struggled during this lockdown, not having that sense of community around me. Mikey has just reminded us that the National Front did threaten Reading Pride in, I can't remember the year, Mikey, but I remember doing a lot of press articles and interviews about it, and actually turning it on its head and welcoming the National Front to Reading. And we had the National Press and the National Front didn't show. I am conscious of the time, and we have done the 4 questions, not necessarily the same 4 questions we planned for, but that does mean our discussions have come to an end, and also brings an end to Reading Pride's Digital Together. Even though we've not had the chance this year to physically celebrate diversity or Pride together, don't forget that Reading Pride Support You, My Umbrella and Club F.O.D, as well as venues such as the Blagrave Arms, are here for you all year round. We are a community, and no matter what is thrown at us, as a community we will face that together. My thanks to all of our guests this evening, so Leslee Barron, Laurence O'Meara, Lorna McArdle and Paul Britt. Let me just bring them back on the screen. I was going to say machine then, but you're not a machine. There they are. They can all wave like celebrity squares now. So thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy Saturday evenings. Well, let's face it, where else were you going to go when you're locked in? That's the world we're in now. My thanks as well to Sophie, who has put so much hard work behind the scenes to make this happen tonight. So thank you, Sophie. And of course, to all of you at home for watching. It has been my pleasure to be your facilitator. There we go, I've gone posh, I've left Whitley. Your facilitator this evening through Reading Pride past, present, and as we move towards the future, we hope that future is bright. Remember, stay safe. Keep being fabulous. Remember this, spread the love and not the germs. Until we can meet again, good night and God bless. And I shall leave you, if the button works, with this. See you later, everyone. Goodbye.